welcome back to the State of Healthcare podcast, or the SOH as we're calling it. Last season, we learned about things from the health provider's perspective. So we learned about our system and kind of some of the frustrations of why it's not necessarily broken, right? It's just doing what it says. We treat and treat. We don't necessarily try to prevent illnesses. We don't try to be proactive for patients. So unfortunately, what we've led to is a system that's not necessarily servicing or providing the actual care that it's supposed to be doing in the first place. This season, we're going along from the journey as the patient perspective. So I'd like to kind of combo. If you haven't listened to season 1, always go on back. But what we're going to be learning is what can you do as a patient? So here we're going to be exploring various conditions, some common, some not so common, and what the people have gone through on their journeys from here. So join us this season as we learn what you can do as a patient to take your own healthcare into your hands in the state of healthcare. Hi, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Season of Healthcare podcast. This is our last one for season 2, and this season we've been sharing patient experiences. So kind of like, what is the healthcare system from a patient perspective? So this episode, you get to actually hear my story. So, because I've actually been a patient of things, so I do understand it. But I have with me as my guest today, this is Krista, and Krista is an amazing yoga teacher. So, if you have not taken a private session from her, I highly recommend it. So, her information is going to be listed with this. So, always feel free to follow her or message her up if you want a very individualized yoga session. So I actually see her for yoga and we work on all of my crazy goals, and I just appreciate it. So just like I like to customize physical therapy, she likes to customize her yoga so you can work on your goals, and again, reasonably priced and amazing session. So thank you for joining me, Krista.
Oh my gosh, well, thank you for having me on. I'm very excited, and I'm excited that you asked that we could do this so we could hear your side of what it's like, because you're now into almost a full second season of the podcast. And I love this season because you have been talking to very, normal people out there in the world who are struggling with very serious, chronic long-term injuries or diagnoses or illnesses or things like that. And so I'm excited because we've heard from all of them, but I also know from you that you have yourself struggled with your own set of injuries and chronic long-term things. So I'm excited because, you're in the physical therapy world. Obviously, you've been in the medical health field for a very long time. But what we're going to talk about today, kind of almost simultaneously happened at the same time, predates it even just a little bit.
Right.
So I'm excited to hear your patient experience because now people are going to be able to see kind of both sides of your story and know why I think you are so passionate about what you're doing and for your patients, because you can literally say to people, I know what you mean. I know what your pain level is. I know how you're feeling right now. I know sometimes it can be hard to get to where you want to go, kind of thing. So thank you for having me on to ask you a few questions.
Yeah, so we brought Krista in because I figured I could just babble my story out for you, but I figured maybe it'd be nice if someone kept me on track, and then,
We'll see.
we'll see how it goes. So yeah, so here we are. But anyways, I'll turn it over to her.
Yeah. So I think what we all just want to hear is, sort of you've had a few injuries, right? And maybe some of those will be for later down the line or some ailments that you've had.
Right.
But why don't we start back at the beginning, which is what we were talking about just a little bit earlier, about how sort of your neck injury that you sustained, and then how that sort of coincided with you starting PT school, but all the things that came with that.
Okay, so for me, when I was younger, I had been swimming in a pool and someone jumped in the pool and landed on my neck. So it was one of those things, and my mom panicked, and we went to a bunch like a neurologist and this and that. And I felt like, it's this age of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, it's not a tumor, and like ended up having an MRI of my neck and my head, and everything was okay. And I was like, okay. So, but I had this back in my head, and I went along, made it through college, didn't have like stress headaches or whatever is the thing, but and in the year and a half between undergrad and grad school. So I took a year and a half off to take extra classes, boost up my resume, do more volunteering. So I did a little different than the traditional PT pathway where everyone works as a PT tech and they have probably had an injury in like high school or college and they're like, I want to be a PT because my PT was amazing. I had figured out I wanted to do something medical, but I didn't. I had started volunteering and I thought, oh, physical therapy, I like the focus on function. So I was doing all this volunteer work. So I'd already decided I wanted to be a physical therapist. but I had never done physical therapy.
Ever. Sorry, just let's point that out.
Ever.
You've never done a
I'd
PT
never, I just,
personally for yourself. You had never shadowed someone.
At that point, like, I had been fortunate enough not to need it,
Okay,
right?
very lucky.
So I was working at American Express, and then I was doing all this other stuff, and I was in the backseat of a car, and they rear-ended somebody. My driver, even if you ask him to this day, though, he'll be like, "No, it wasn't," whatever.
Of course.
And I was just putting my seatbelt on, and he did it pretty quickly. So I got flung forward, hit my head on the passenger seat, and got flung back. So I was having all this pain and dramas and whatever. So I went to the chiropractor and went to all these things, and was trying to get treated. And I always tell people in a car accident or some type of major injury, 6 months is usually a pretty good timeline of when you're going to start feeling better. So like it had been one of those things, like I had this happen, and then the next day I was like, I'm fine, and then I wasn't fine, and then you get all the things, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I got a whiplash. And so I consider that my minor accident, right? So 6 months later, it's a month before I'm starting physical therapy school. I was turning left at a light, and it was one of those things, like I looked beyond the intersection. I thought I looked beyond the intersection, but as the left-hand turner, you're always the person responsible. And someone ran a red light. So as I'm making my left, I got T-boned. And then a guy made a right turn at the same time, so it knocked me into him, which bounced me back. So I did this game of like bumper cars in the middle of an intersection. So I closed down a whole intersection. It was very
And not
exciting.
the fun kind of bumper cars.
No, it was
There are no
terrible.
prizes at the end.
Which was terrible. And even to this day, sometimes you gotta be careful with bumper cars. So it was a terrible accident, and like my car looked like a U, and and I'm like, the whole thing, I'm like in shock. And so it is all of those things that people experience from a car accident, right? You have the adrenaline, you have all that stuff going on, and then the next day I'm like, I am not okay. I am not okay. Same type of thing. The adrenaline wears off, so I go back to the chiropractor, do this and that. But now I've got to move to Flagstaff. I don't have time for this, and I don't have time to treat this thing, right? Because I've got, my car's wrecked, and I got to figure all that stuff out. So like the stuff that people go through in a car accident, you got to get a car, you got to fight. Like I have to fight now.
The insurance.
Whose fault is it? La la la. Because of course I got hit by someone who had no insurance, and their plates didn't match their car, and they 10 people in the clown car, and it was a whole thing.
And this is right on the heels. So you're basically 6 months out from
I had just gotten
accident.
that. Yeah.
You were sort of just as what you're saying, getting better.
And it's finally like, yeah,
feeling normal.
Smashed, right? So now I'm like double the trauma. So I'm starting PT school, and I'm trying to go through things. And I started getting these headaches. And like, and people talk about migraines and things like that. So I would have the light sensitivity, I would get nauseous. I literally could not function. And so as I'm doing physical therapy school, I'd have to take like 1 or 2 days off from school, or I'd try to struggle and I'd go home early and I couldn't study. And I was like, I am not doing okay. So in the meantime, I'm still trying to get treated for this car accident. So I would go to physical therapy school Monday through Thursday, and then I would drive back down to Phoenix on Fridays, where they, so you do the traditional, right? You go to your doctor, and he does an x-ray, and then the x-ray is like, it's okay, right? Your neck is okay. So, a little like flattening of your cervical spine, and like you've lost some of the curve. So they automatically, like, they send you to the orthopedic doctor, right? So I go to one of those, I call them like the factory style orthos, right?
Yeah.
And you hurry in, and they send you the neck guy, and he's got 20 million, and he's automatically like, oh, it's this, we go do this. So they send me to physical therapy. So now I get to start physical therapy for the first time while I'm in PT school. So I get the full experience. And then he's like, we're going to do a series of injections. This will help your neck, right? And I'm like, okay. So I'm doing physical therapy, and it's like, there I am in physical therapy doing a series of exercises while someone picks on my form, and then they put me on the stim machine, and then I go to sleep, and it's a whole thing, right? And I'm working all this stuff, and they taped my neck. And that's before the world of kinesio taping was popular. So they taped me with the stiff tape, and I couldn't even turn my head to get out of the parking lot. And I had to come back in and have them take off the tape and all the stuff, because I'm like, I can function. And so then I remember going in to get these injections, right? So they're like, oh, well, if you're not responding, then we stick a needle in it, right? We inject it. She's still having the neck pain from this accident. So I remember I went and met with him, and he's like, well, what level do you think we should do? Because you're in PT school, you tell me. And I'm like, I don't know, let's try 3, 4. So here's me, like, and because I was in PT school,
like I just started, so
yeah, I'm in year 1, dude. Like, it's 2 months in. I got a picture. When I woke up from the injection, they'd taken a picture of them sticking the needle in my neck from the fluoroscopy. So it was an x-ray picture, so he could show me. And I'm like, that's cool. But so it's the things. And then I remember going in for one, they did, I think 2 to 3 injections. And the third, there was one of them. I remember I went in and they're getting ready to do the IV and they're like, how's your arm? And I'm like, my arm never hurt. It was always the neck issues and then these terrible migraines and these headaches and the stuff that were debilitating. And I was still trying to function, right? Like physical therapy school is hard. It's a hard program and I'm trying to stay up with all the things and I'm trying to like heal my body. And I'm like, my arm doesn't hurt. They're like, oh, you're getting better. And I'm like, my arm never hurt.
This wasn't the problem to begin with, so maybe we shouldn't focus
And
on
I'm
that.
like, where the fuck are you sticking this needle? And I'm like,
we need to talk about this.
I need to meet somebody, because then I, as a PT now, I'm like, they probably thought I had a disc issue with radicular symptoms down the arm and they're thinking it's improving. I'm like, that was never my issue. Yeah. My MRI basically said more degeneration than appropriate for age. So at C5, 6 level, I was diagnosed with basically degenerative beginnings of arthritis. And I'm like, 20 something years old. And I'm like, crap.
Not the diagnosis you want to hear.
And I was like, what? But nothing in that said like I would have no disc impinged, none of these other things that really explain why I was having all these headaches. So then of course I'm like, I'm done with injections, and I never followed up and they never cared to call me to follow up because they're so busy. They've got 20 million other
they're
people.
running you through the system.
Yeah. And so then then they're like, well, we'll give you medication. Maybe it's the physical therapist that said, you're probably grinding your teeth. You probably have a TMJ issue, right? Maybe it's that you're stressed out, you're grinding your teeth. I'm also in physical therapy school. Of course I'm stressed out.
Right.
So they get the doctor to give me some medication of course, because, that's what you do. You get the course of the anti-inflammatories and the muscle relaxers, and they're like, give her the medications. And I'm like, okay, so I get this medication and you guys are going to be shocked to hear this. If anybody knows how much soda I drink, I wasn't allowed to have caffeinated beverages. There's no caffeinated beverages.
How did we survive?
Yeah. So I was like, maybe
are you still here?
maybe like 1 soda a day or 1 soda, like, cut down the caffeinated beverages, do these physical therapy. I'm trying all the things. I got these pills. And then the pills come with this paragraph of side effects.
Right.
And I'm looking at the side effects like, what the?
You're basically gonna die.
Yeah. And it was like uncontrolled arm and leg movements. You could lose weight, you could gain weight. And then this was what I loved. It said uncontrollable craving for sweets. And I'm like, no one will know. I'm going to have all these medications.
You're like, this is right up my alley.
Yeah. So the bright side of the thing was the side effects were I lost weight. I still crave sweets like nobody's business. And it would knock me out at night, but I didn't have the uncontrolled arm and leg movement.
Well, bonus.
Maybe while I was sleeping. And I didn't know because I couldn't wake up. But then I remember I was hitting finals. It was like this end of the semester and I'm hitting finals. And I'm like, I can't be taking these drugs where it just knocks me out and I don't know if I'm going to wake up. So I put the drugs away and I'm like, I can't be taking this. This isn't my, I'm like, I'm going to try this without it. And then someone's like, you're getting these headaches consistently every 2 weeks. What if it's related to your birth control? So then I did follow up with my gynecologist at the time, who's a different one than I have now. And she's like, oh yeah, these could totally be giving you headaches, and I'm like, what? So maybe it's my hormones and maybe it's a thing. And then of course they switched it. They switched my birth control, right? Because that's what they do. Well, let's get you on a different medication. And I'm like, so now my hormones are fucked up and I've got headaches and I'm not allowed to have caffeine.
There's no soda in your life.
There's no soda. And
I don't know what the point is anymore.
Why am I struggling through physical therapy school? Why am I trying so hard? And I'm trying to get through this program and all these things, right? So in the meantime, like, I stopped physical therapy. I'm still just kind of struggling through. And then I'm doing what I learned, right? I can't sleep on the couch. I can't sit too close to movie theaters. I can't have things that trigger my neck. In physical therapy school, I could only work in groups of 3 because I couldn't let the students touch my neck. So when we learned cervical stuff, I wanted to feel it. I wanted to have the same patient experience, but it would lead to headache flare-ups. So if the students worked on me, I flared. And then of course, every student in the class wanted to be the one that fixed me, right? Because we're PT students, that's what we do. So
they're gonna solve it.
They're going to fix it. So everybody tried working on me, and of course, they're not being flare-ups for days. So I was like, nobody touches Tracy. Like I worked in groups of 3 to still get the skill, but then nobody get gypped because I literally couldn't have people touching my neck.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting through the things, I'm going through, then I'm going through my rotations, and I'm like, I finally graduate physical therapy school, but I still had these almost monthly debilitating headaches, right? Whereas like 2 of my days would just be like toast. And
it's awful.
Yeah. And I could kind of function, but I'd be nauseous. I'd barely be functioning. So of course, what they had given me at the time was medication. Of course, now it's medication because that's what solves everything, right? And you don't worry about the side effects. So to survive and to do this, I ended up taking there was a headache medicine, and it was a vasodilator. So it was supposed to increase, or it was a vasoconstrictor, because they believed that it was the dilation of the blood vessels was leading to it. Vasoconstrictor combined with a sedative. So I would hope it would knock me out, but beforehand, all I would sit there is I couldn't move, but my heart rate would be like because I had a vaso. So and I'd just be like, this is the weirdest feeling ever. So you'd be like weirdly drugged, right? And it was just kind of one of those things. And so I would take, of course you take one pill, right? You take the one pill to help it, and then after a while, one pill doesn't cut it because now I'm used to it. So then by the time I'm finishing PT school, I have to take 2 pills. And now I'm graduated and I'm trying to work. And now I'm taking and now I was like 2 pills isn't cutting it anymore. I'm trying to survive my job. I'm trying to survive this. So I remember there was a time I was out and I took a 3rd pill, and I just finished dinner with my friend, and I'm in my car and I'm like, I can't drive home.
No.
And I'm in tears in my car, just crying. I'm like, I'm supposed to be healing people, or, or helping them on their pathway. And I'm in my car to the point where I can't drive home.
Yeah, sobbing. Like, this is not a good quality of life.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is terrible. And then there was one other occasion, like I had it was like a Christmas dinner, and I was trying to get through that, and I thought I made it, and I just got home, and I'm like, I can't live like this. I had to take one more pill just to get through the night, and my body was like, we're done, bitch. And I literally performed like a scene from The Exorcist. And I'm like throwing up at the time, and then and and I'm throwing up, and at the time that's when I was married, and my ex was like comes running out, and he's trying to help me, and my pills were red, so he thinks I'm throwing up blood, so he's freaking out.
Oh no.
And he's yelling, what can I get you? And I'm like, hair tie, hair tie.
It's the most important thing right now.
Yeah, my hair.
It's in the way of the vomit.
I felt like George Clooney. I'm like, my hair, my Dapper Dan, and I was like, and I got up when I finished, I got up and I threw the pills in the trash, and I was like, this is not how I'm going to live my life. And so at the time I had gone through like a manual therapy class with Tim Farron, who's kind of famous in the Arizona PT community. And so of course I'd met a few people, and of course in that class again, everyone thought they were going to fix me because we're all PTs, and I still had to work in groups of 3 because I couldn't have these people touching me. And I contacted one of my friends, and I was like, I need you to help me. I need you to work on me. I need another therapist to help me because I can't live like this. And so my friend Lindsay, who is an amazing therapist, I would come and see her, and like if I was waiting in the room, I'd be doing my little exercises and trying to be constructive, and and you get to also see like her working in the outpatient clinic where she's running between a bunch of people. But she was one of the few people I trusted to work on my neck. Because I had a lot of trust issues, and I had flare-ups, and so she was one of the ones that kind of kickstarted me on this journey. And then whatever job I would go to, I would train one person to
that's smart.
Like if I could catch the headache as it was coming, if I knew the symptoms, like kind of people with headaches, they know their triggers. Right. Which again, I was glad that Coke and chocolate are not my triggers.
You wouldn't be here right now.
I got rid of the no caffeine rule. At this point, I was like, screw it. I'm already getting headaches, and this is not helping. So I trained one person so that I could go to them and say, hey, it's coming, work on me, and then I could nip the headache in the bud.
So you were teaching them the manual manipulations
of what my neck needed.
What you needed. So this was actually, it sounds like the alternative that worked versus the massive amount of pills that
the massive amount of pills that didn't really fix it.
That caused the exorcism.
Yes, it just made me sleep.
Yeah.
And it basically was just you would sleep, and then I hope you wake up without the headache, right?
Just like trying to take a bunch of Advil and hoping that solves the root of the problem, but
it doesn't.
Yeah.
So again, I learned like what I teach all the patients, right? I have to have a good pillow. I need a pillow that supports my neck in a neutral position, which fortunately for me right now is one that looks like the Millennium Falcon.
Doesn't really? Amazing.
It's like, I'm like, yeah.
Is it actually a loop around? Or
yeah, it's like a little Millennium Falcon.
Is it a memory foam? I'm curious because I've heard this question from other people with neck problems. If memory foam is a good or bad thing, because kind of it
has that
to the neck.
This one is not actually, and it's kind of random. Someone bought this pillow, and I'm like, yay! And I lay on it, and like Wade and I fight over it because it's like the perfect pillow. But so it's actually not like it's when I lay on it, my head's in the perfect, it's not like my head's not like
it
this.
keeps in alignment with
Yeah.
your spine.
And I did throughout all of the things with all of the treatments and the stuff I used to have all the like the little Hill Valley pillows and the memory foams and the things like that. And I'd be like, oh, I have to have my special pillow. And now I've gotten to the point where I can find almost any pillow as long as it keeps my head in that neutral spine.
Okay.
And the interesting part is when I was married, we had bought a new mattress, and one of the things that happened was the mattress was too firm. So for me, I didn't sink. It's gonna sound like I'm so cool. I didn't sink into the mattress enough to reach the pillow. So I would be up here and my head would be like trying to get to the pillow, and I was having headaches on this mattress.
Yep.
So I was sleeping on the couch with my little pillow. And then we got a pillow topper so I could come down and keep my spine in neutral. So as long as I have a good sleeping position, right? So I have to do all the stuff I tell people.
Yep.
Good sleeping position. I can't be somewhere where I'm like sticking my head all forward.
Does it matter if you're a side stomach back sleeper? I mean, I know the rule sort of is you want to be a back sleeper if you can be, but I ignore that. So
I'm a side sleeper. So I do try to follow the rules I tell people. So I'm on my side. I try to have like a little pillow between my knees or something.
Keep
So I'm
the
not
spine fully in alignment.
not all twisted punny.
Yeah.
You know, again, you could have that ideal world where you hug something and you're here and everything's perfect, right? But I keep my spine neutral. Again, sometimes it's hard when you go and you stay in a hotel or you stay in an Airbnb or you're in someone else's, but I sometimes will build things up or I jimmy things together to make it work. And then, so the only time I'm on my stomach is if like I've got cramps or things like that, but I try not to sleep that way because it does jank your neck, right? So if you don't have that support, if I'm not sleeping at a massage table where my face is face down, where it's neutral, I don't that. And again, I'm also super careful about who does touch my neck too. So there are certain people that again have trained or have whatever that I know, or I get my ball out like just like everything else.
So what else? So those are all great. So what else helps you? So proper pillow, proper kind of sleeping spine alignment, having someone who knows what they're doing on your neck for the neck, they can catch it ahead of the headache.
Right.
Ball work, which we all hate because it's the devil.
It hurts.
Anything else in terms of like taking care of you or avoiding what might trigger that? Is there any other, I mean, do baths help? What else do you do for
self-care?
Yeah.
Well, and so I
more care of the neck. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there's like, again, for me, I have to honestly say the best thing was, so I get done with this, right? I finished with my friend working on me. I've started training people. I'm doing these things. This is where I get to plug in why I love Ariel.
Oh my gosh. Buckle up, everybody. Here we go.
I'm like, yay.
A soliloquy of her love for
aerial sports. So honestly, for me, it was getting stronger, right? So like I always exercised, I always worked out, I always stayed active, even in like working in American Express was a little bit harder because it was one of those jobs where you sat 10 hours a day. It definitely reinforced that I wanted to be a physical therapist and wanted to be moving around. So having an active profession is very helpful. I get to change positions frequently. I'm not stuck on the computer with like this terrible posture. So, right. So I have to be ergonomic in my setup wherever I am. I have to watch that stuff. If I'm on the couch and I'm,
your posture is very good right now. I just want to say for everyone who can't see her, her posture is quite good.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where it's like, so as I was progressing after PT school and all this stuff, I started getting more strength based focus. Like I went to the gym and we did things, kickboxing, I did cardio, I did whatever, but I wasn't as strength focused as I probably should have been.
Okay.
And so for me, I started I started taking pole dancing.
Yeah.
And then I realized I needed to get stronger to do the pole dancing
because I get up the pole and hold those positions
and be able to invert and not hurt myself. So then I started doing, and again, as much as I tease poor CrossFit, I did do CrossFit for a couple of years to build up some strength safely, of course, right? And with all the proper form and amazingness. But then I kind of switched from that and I do a lot of my own strengthening stuff at home. But I do have to keep up strengthening so that I can do all the aerial stuff. And then of course pole opened a whole new world for me of like so many fun things. But to be honest, and again, like I had being safe with what I do, but the stronger I got, the less flare-ups I have.
Interesting. Okay.
So I still will. Again, I was telling you earlier, like we were talking about sometimes hormones still are a thing. So now I'm not on any form of birth control. Not that everyone, but again, women, we don't talk about this stuff. But I'm not on birth control, which again, that can be its own course of a fun discussion for another time about other issues. But so now it's just whatever. My hormones do still try to trigger something. Sometimes it's a warning your period's coming. Sometimes it's like by the way, I forgot to tell you your period's here. You know,
Are you just making sure you're paying attention?
yeah. Would you
Yes.
like also to have a headache with your
Mhm,
cramps?
mhm.
So
Yep.
sometimes it just screws with me, but I can start to feel the like
Yes.
the things coming. And if I nip it in the bud, but the stronger I've gotten, the less flare-ups I tend to have.
Mhm.
Stress is still a trigger, right?
Yep.
So I think we all have that thing where you, as you're stressing, you can almost feel like your shoulders go into your ears, right? So
Yes.
even in PT school, I always tease there was this class they made us sit around and talk about our feelings, and I'm like super terrible at that. But like,
This is amazing though. I would love this. I'd be like, yes, let me tell you what I need to tell you about my feelings.
and I'm like, why are we wasting our time in this touchy-feely class?
Like the best part.
So, and I could just feel my ears. And by the time I
Mhm.
left, I had a headache, and I was like, it was already coming
Well,
on.
your body is in that contraction, right? You're
Yeah.
so stressed, you're so worried
Mhm.
about it. So everything starts to tighten and then it just rolls right up.
Yeah, and then your posture gets terrible and
Yes.
everything gets stressed. So stress is a trigger, right? I have had periods of time. So again, in the past year, like, different things, or I've noticed I'm like, ooh, this is a stress induced whatever that
Mm,
came with it. And so sometimes the nausea, sometimes the things. But again, if I can, because people are like, oh, do you just go to bed when you get a headache? And I'm like, no, I
mm,
don't actually. Like, because again, I could just go and sleep. Or I could work with the ball if I can catch it. Sometimes again, maybe I'll close my evening a little sooner, or like, maybe I have to take an Advil for this particular day every once in a while, but I try to very much avoid medications. Maybe I ice instead, or I do whatever. But for me, what has helped is again, amazing posture, ergonomics,
mhm.
knowing that when I feel like, okay, this is stressful, stepping away and taking a break before I get a headache, and then strengthening. It doesn't mean everybody has to do aerial, which again, I love, but like strength based stuff, because the stronger my body has gotten, the less strain in my neck.
Right. Well, and you do an amazing amount of things in the air.
Mhm.
I mean, Spanish web and
Mhm.
trapeze and lyra and the little lollipop thing that I don't know what that is. And I mean, there's so many different things. That's so
Uh-huh.
much upper body strength. So that's really good to hear because I think a lot of people would think you do that much work and it would trigger,
Right.
right, migraine or chronic
Mhm.
headaches. And you're actually saying no for you at least, right? Everyone's a little bit individual, but for
Right.
you, building that strength up has actually really helped diminish because it sounds like now those
Mhm.
headaches aren't as frequent.
Well, and again, there's also the importance of proper strength training, right?
Right.
And then and again, it's kind of a controversial subject amongst people about cross training, but I also do, so I love doing all those things. But again, safely with someone watching you, and stuff happens, right? The injuries just happen, but like making sure your form is good,
Mhm.
that I'm not overcompensating, that I'm not doing something silly, that I'm not just shoulder shrugging up into the form,
Yeah.
and then strengthening in between. Because I was discussing that with someone that like everyone who works out should consider themselves an athlete. And as an athlete, you need to condition and you need to properly make sure your form is good. You need to do all these things. And so I still do strength-based stuff on when I'm not there. So I get to do yoga with you, which
Mhm.
is a good way to also balance all the pulling. So I get to do the pushing side of things. So I'm balanced in that side of it. But also like I think that doing that stuff helped build up my shoulders and helped build up my lats and things like that. Whereas a lot of other people, and it's not a general, but you see them overdevelop their traps,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
definitely a problem for neck issues.
Mhm.
And so if you overdevelop your pecs and you overdevelop your traps and you're
Mhm.
not as strong in these other areas, then you set yourself up for more neck issues. And that's where I'm also like, as a PT, helping to clean up people's things where I'm like,
Mhm.
ooh, what's the wrong things are firing.
Right. Well, and I love how, because I've seen you for
Mm.
PT as well, but
Mhm.
I love how it is that cross training piece, right? Because as a yoga
Mhm.
instructor, I see a lot of push and hardly
Mhm.
any pull. You've yelled at me about the pull before, which is fine. I can take it, but like, but it's true. But you're over firing the wrong things. You're over developing things, and that's just going. The body, as we were talking about earlier, right? All
Uh-huh.
connected, right? All
Right.
connected. So you're going to trigger one thing, and then it's going to spider web up and over into the other
Mhm.
thing if you're not paying attention to that
Right.
piece of it.
And sometimes it's the hard part, right? Because you have something you love, right? Like, so say, like, the problem is I have FOMO, so I love everything. But, like, say I just love Lyra and all I did was Lyra, I may end up with some other issues, right? So I think that's why it's important. And I look at that like some of the Lyra instructors that I love to see, like some of the ones that I work with at Prowess or whatever, they have their gym days. So they go to the gym too. So they're doing their strength building. So they do all the Lyra and you see them practicing because they're amazing. But then I see them go to their gym days and just kind of like Circus Center, they have their conditioning courses and things like that. So yes, you do practice the device you want to be on, but you have to build the strength.
Yes.
So it is interesting because then I tease aerialists that they don't have enough push, right? We need more push, but like, because they're all pull.
You just never win, basically.
Yes.
You either need push, you need more pull, you need more down, you need more up. I can't help you anymore.
Right. But there's balance. So that's why I like people doing yoga. I like people like balancing all things out too. So I always admire that the teachers that are very like strategic in their things. So that I have to give like a good shout out to like Tanya and Haley from Prowess. They're very like strategic in their stuff. And I do watch that like they do warm-ups that are based on of like what we're gonna do in the skill that day. And then I know that they go and work out and they're like, oh, I had this gym day and I did this, so I think it helps to have good examples too from your people. But so there's my neck blur,
but it sounds like now, I mean, you're recognizing the triggers, right? You're able to maybe some of the time, most of the time, get ahead of it before it becomes a real blown out, issue. It's not happening as frequently.
Right.
I guess the question I would have too is, I mean, so this injury happened almost 20 years ago, and you've been in a PT for almost 20 years.
Right.
So if somebody walked into your clinic today, it sounds like, I mean, your approach, let's say they had the very same, accident that you had. So your approach versus the approach that you were given 20 years ago, you'd be like, maybe let's skip the pills.
Yeah. And again, for some people, they need that. So like we always talk about like everybody's different, right? Like you can, two of us could come in with the same diagnosis, the same injury, and because of our past histories and our bodies and our things, they're going to respond differently, right? But again, like, so some people have to have the pills, or some people their migraines are different, or their triggers, some people unfortunately triggered by chocolate, and I feel terrible about their world.
That is a loss.
I'm like, damn it, But again, I tend to approach it with like same type of things: posture, find the ergonomic stressors of their life, sleeping positions, even like how are they in the car? How are they, just everyday life things. So a lot of times it's things they're not even thinking about. Is it the manual stuff? Self-care, strength exercises from a PT perspective, find something that they enjoy. But yeah, if they could do less pills and less injections, I'd be much happier because it wasn't the best journey for me, necessarily, but I also feel like it gave me a level of understanding for people that go through that.
Yeah.
Like, I worked in chronic pain stuff for a while. When people come in, they're like, you have no idea. I'm like, you have no idea.
You're like, actually, I do.
I do. If anyone is going to understand you, it's going to be me. And it doesn't mean they're not more like pain it's perception, right? It's subjective. So my level 2, maybe someone else's level 5, or their level 10, maybe, it's just everybody's different with how they perceive pain. But
my husband asked me that. He's always like, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 is you're dying and we need to go to the hospital. I'm always like, it's a 9. And Eric's like, is it really a 9?
You're like, okay.
But as someone who also deals with chronic pain and a chronic injury, like it is a lot to manage, and it is a lot to carry. And some days it's a 2, but some days it flares to,
and it can be exhausting. So to be honest, pain can be wearing on you. Like it is. So that's why a lot of people want to just go to sleep. They want to take a medication and just go to sleep because it's exhausting. So you're always in pain and it's wearing on you. And I remember those like days when like I was just like, oh, I just got to take a pill, man. I can't, and as terrible as it is, there was one day like I could feel it and I was working and I'm like, oh no, and I'm literally holding onto the wall and like trying to just steady myself, and no patients notice, which I guess is both good and bad, right? I'm like going down and I'm like, oh my God.
I mean, hopefully someone noticed you actually fainted and passed out on the floor.
Yeah. Unfortunately I didn't. I'm like, get it together. You got to finish this workday. But like, it was just, so as if someone were to come in, like, again, I have to give kudos to when, like, I had one patient who, it wasn't as major of a car accident, but she got in a car accident and she called me from the site of the car accident. She called me, she's like, what do I do to stop this from becoming a thing?
Because you're very proactive.
And you know what? She had an amazing recovery.
Good for her.
So I'm not saying like, you know what? If you do get in a car accident, you're welcome to call me.
Tracy should be your number 2 call. Let's call 911 first.
Yeah. So I mean, the cops were already there. They called the cops. They called the cops.
Maybe your significant other.
Yeah, and then the family. And then they called me, and the family, it was like, called
You're
Tracy.
number 3 on speed dial.
Yeah. And they called me and I was like, okay, here's what we're gonna do.
Amazing. Dive right in.
Right. And so because here's the problem that happens in a lot of car accidents, right? There's the drama and the stress and people, oh no, this, that. And then, you're dealing with the insurance companies and so there's probably so many days delay before they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain, I need to get treated. And then you have to wait to get into it, a practitioner. And sometimes you're lucky you get into a chiropractor right away, you get whatever. But it may be 3 or 4 days after the accident before. And I mean, that's kind of what happened to me, right? Like I was like, I'm okay. I'm okay. I was not okay.
No, not
Yeah.
okay.
And I should have gotten treated right away. Had I gone home and done the self-care and the things, maybe. So this girl, like again, accident not major. It's not a competition, and maybe not like, well, it was a rear ending, but still those are dramatic and you can end up with things. And then I always tell the irony of like, while I was going through all these headaches and dramas, I was rear-ended 3 other times just sitting at lights. You know, we all know I'm a terrible driver, but sometimes I would just be sitting there and someone would hit me. And I remember getting out of the car once and I go, "You're gonna give me a headache," and I'm so angry about it. But this girl called right away and I was like, "Okay, you're gonna go home, you're gonna get your TENS unit, we're gonna get ice." And then we talked her through it. And yeah, she did need a course of physical therapy for like
Sure.
maybe a month.
Mhm.
And then she
That's
was good.
a month compared to a year
Years
of
of
work
like
or
drama.
more. Right, exactly. And not heavy on medication or
Mhm.
injections like what we're talking about. Which
Yeah.
again, sometimes again, people do need.
Sometimes that's needed
Yeah.
for whatever happens or, you know, this and that. But like, I again, maybe because they're well trained, I'm like, immediately call me. Let's not let this be a drama.
We're now number 3 on my speed dial as well.
So, but I have to say, like that proactive approach. So if someone were to come in, so if you get in a car accident, as terrible as it is, you get into physical therapy right away.
Mhm.
Like, you know, I don't know, and again, insurance, but like call me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
let's get it treated because the quicker you respond,
Yeah.
the quicker you can nip it in the bud.
Well, and I think the quicker you can be able to manage it, right? You know,
Mhm.
when I had an injury about 20 years ago as well, it was now something I have to live with forever. Like you have to
Mhm.
live with your headaches forever. So there's the
Mhm.
acute problem, right, of what the accident or the injury is.
Mhm.
But then there's sort of managing life with chronic pain
Mhm.
and recognizing that sometimes you may be altered, right? You may have
Right.
to make difficult decisions. You've had some people on this season who they've had to shift workouts or they've had to, you know,
Mhm.
make choices in how they do things.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that all is lost, right? It means
Right.
that actually, no, there's just a new perspective we have to gain.
Well, and that was, I think, for me, what was the hardest part was like when this happened, and I'd always be like, "Oh, I can't with my neck," or "this with my neck," and exercise. And then there are times like as I look through, like if I'm doing an exercise program or watching stuff, I'm always like, "Okay, what's this gonna do to my neck?" Or you
Mhm.
know, like I am careful with stuff, so it did alter, but I also feel like as weird as it's gonna sound, I'm doing far more
Yeah.
than I did
Hmm.
before I got hurt, as
Hmm.
weird as that sounds. So I'm like, look at all these crazy things I'm doing, you know? But
Well, and I think that's also a testament to trusting yourself and trusting your body because, you know, I've been teaching yoga for a long time, but before I taught yoga, because of my injury, I was told never to do yoga.
mhm,
And I heard that and I listened to that for a couple of years and then I needed yoga for something else.
mhm,
And it turns out it actually has made it same thing better. My core is stronger,
mhm,
my balance is better.
right.
So it's actually made me in a better position physically than I think had
Mhm,
I not started yoga at all. So I think there's a trust factor there of yes, you have an injury
mhm.
or something that's chronic long term, but listen to yourself too
Well,
and trust yourself.
it's also interesting. I feel like there's a lot of practitioners who don't understand what certain exercises are because I was told to
Yes.
never do yoga. When I was in physical therapy, they were like, never do yoga. So I was
Yeah.
like scared to do yoga for all these years, right? I was this
Yeah.
naive PT coming out, and I'm like, I'm not allowed
Can't
to
touch that.
yeah. And unfortunately, I have to give credit to my friends inviting me to downward drafts and starting to do like
Oh
the
yeah.
yoga in the back of the
Uh-huh.
brewery and stuff. So I'll give Christy a shout out on that one. But, and I'm like, but I'm getting stronger and more bendy and more balanced, you know? And I'm like, why was this wrong?
Right.
You
Right.
know, I don't think people understand it. And I also think healthcare practitioners are educated in, well, don't ever do that again.
Right.
Because I had a patient that was doing, they wanted to get back to aerial. That was their thing. And they came to their doctor, and the doctor's like, well, you're 40 now. You know, maybe you just need to give, don't ever go back. Don't do that. Or basically, like, don't do what hurts you. And they're like, well, my back went out doing the dishes.
That's usually when actually most of the worst things happen. You're like,
Yeah.
I turned the corner in my hallway and I rolled my ankle. So
Right. And so I was like, well, don't do the
you
dishes.
don't do the
But I
dishes.
think we could get you back to rope and silks, you know,
Yeah, and
like,
also if that was my position, I'd be like,
mhm,
don't throw the age thing at me. I
mhm,
really have a hard time with that one. It's like, oh, you've hit a certain age,
mhm.
you can no longer do this. It's like, really?
Yeah, and so they leave that visit like, oh gosh, you know, and so for me, I'm like, what? So and Barry said it their current story is they are back to aerials. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're dishes, but like I don't
I
think
would take that as a lifetime path to never do
no more
dishes again.
dishes. But I was like, no, don't listen to that person.
Yeah.
Like we will re-educate you, we will re-strengthen, we will do all these things and get you back to what you're doing safely.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's the problem. I think that there's just like people don't understand, and there's certain things where some of my patients are like, okay, this isn't for you, or
Right.
again, like we talked kind of like with this bunny, like a lot of extension stuff is not your friend, or there are certain movements, and there's things for me, like right, like long-term headstands, or me doing a lot of things where I may roll into my head. Maybe not my best play,
I get why you're mad at me when I dropped you that one time. I get it now. I'm like, you hit your neck all the way down.
Yeah, so I'm like, this could be
I only dropped her once.
This could be a headache, So there are things like, and again, for me, like real life bumper cars, right? If I go in there, I know there's a 50-50 chance this is a terrible plan.
It's an awful idea.
Like roller coasters. Do I love them? Do I know I may pay a price, right? So it's just things like that. But I also think that there's a lot of misconceptions from physicians who are old school and don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. When I was told, don't do yoga, it's like, okay. And there are exactly with the spondy, wheel is not my friend. I cannot be in any position that compresses the spine in a lot of ways. But that doesn't bother me. I will find workarounds, or I'll do wheel once a year, and then I will know that I will pay that price, and then I will see you, and it all comes full circle, and then we're fine.
Right. So it's just, there's those precautions. So yes, that's why when I hear the patients talk about like, here's what I've been given, right?
Yeah.
And now what do you do with it? So yes, was I mad for years? Was I frustrated? Was I in the system of terribleness? But has it maybe given me the gift that I get the understanding of for my patients what it's like, right? So would I like to have a perfect body and just go through life? But maybe I wouldn't have appreciated it. Maybe I would have never then sought out these things to strengthen and do the stuff that I needed to do. Maybe I wouldn't have been as understanding. Maybe I'd be an asshole therapist. I don't know. Like,
you have your moments, but
I am an asshole therapist. That's not the point.
No, but it is a gift. I mean, and it sounds weird to say that, but I had that thought at the beginning of this episode where, you had this really unfortunate injury, but it has allowed you to go into a profession with greater understanding of what your patients are going through. You can relate to the chronic pain. In addition, you love flying through the air. So it's like you went to something that maybe you never would have found before because you were looking to strengthen the neck and all of those muscles. So those are two really that's the majority of what you like doing is seeing patients doing your job and then flying out on crazy little things that I would never do, but good for you. But I mean, that has come really stemmed from,
from me being injured in the first place. So I have to say, like, do I wish I had 9 would never hurt again and never get a headache? Yeah, I mean, obviously, but at the same time, I have to say that all of that drama, I think, was a gift. And again, I wouldn't trade it. Like, again, it's one of those things, right? Can I have this? But I have to appreciate the journey.
Right. And just the perspective, it's giving you, because I think a lot of times too, I've been on that road too, where living with chronic pain, there are definitely ups and downs. I think you do fatigue from it sometimes.
Yeah.
But you're giving hope to people too, right? To say, hey, listen, I've lived with something for a really long time and it is doable, and I'm super functional, and I do a lot of activities. I don't do all the ones maybe I want to do to the fullest extent. But I think when people get a diagnosis or an illness or anything like that from sort of the old school practitioners, it can be that death sentence of everything you've loved doing.
We've now taken away from
We've
you.
now, and that's what I felt like. I felt like people took a lot of things away from me, and they wanted to put a steel rod in my spine. I'd lose all my mobility. I'm avoiding that at all costs.
Right.
And it took me a long time to find the right people who were like, actually, here's some things you can do to help this.
Right.
And it's going to be okay.
Right.
Like, you're able to do that with your experience and with this particular experience with the neck, which is amazing.
Right. So that's like one of those things when you talk about the patient experience. Yes, have I been through the healthcare system? Do I know what it's like to go in a factory therapy clinic? Do I know what it's like to, but fortunately I was lucky in the fact that like the therapist I did get one-on-one time with them, working on me at least, and following me around and picking up my form and all the things. So I have had that, but I've been through the factory orthos. I've been through the ones where I'm the churn and burn of the injections, right? And me going, where are they sticking this needle? Because I don't think I know what,
My butt didn't need that.
Yeah, what are we doing? Or, let's just throw pills at her. Like, let's just, so I've been through all of those experiences, and now I can say that at least like again, whatever. But currently it's just like, if I have to, if it's terribleness, yes, maybe a couple Advil. But I look for my triggers. I follow the advice I give my own patients. So I'm not a hypocrite. When I give you these little lectures, it's because, welcome to my world. But I do have to monitor things, but I'm also still hoping to just keep getting better every year. Like, I have a lot of goals. So, and a lot of FOMO, so I want to try everything.
Which is amazing. So I guess anything final that you want to tell people, or just about sort of, I don't know, you've already given so much like hope about the living with chronic pain, but any sort of like last final nugget to share with folks who might be maybe at the beginning of their journey or part way, or still don't kind of have seen that light of like, oh, this is actually possible.
Right. I mean, aside from obviously I'm number 3 on the speed dial.
Obviously, totally. You might be number 2. I'm gonna call you before I call my husband now.
You're like, here's what to do.
He doesn't know what to do. He'll just panic.
Right. I've got you. Here's what we're gonna do with this accident. To be honest, again, like I feel like, and again, when I talk about the podcast and the things of like the healthcare system, it's not a picking on these practitioners because they're working out of their scope. But that's almost why I say like get into physical therapy. The hope isn't gone. Like it's frustrating, but I feel like if you can get in with therapy and follow the things, right? Like nobody, I'm not like just come hang out with us because I'm obviously prejudiced in that note of it, but it's okay to still go with like what you want to do and don't lose sight of those dreams. They're still there. You will have to do the whole thing of like, here's where I'm at with my body, here and how we're going to modify it. But it's okay. So it's okay to still be like, this sucks, and it's okay to admit that it sucks and be mad about it, like, but then you've got to figure your shit out and you've got to go on, and I feel like a good therapist will help you with that journey. They will be like, it's okay, and they're going to be there when you're frustrated and you've had slopes. Like there are days I'm like, son of a bitch, like, why am I got a headache today? I've got way too much to do for this
is inconvenient.
Yeah, so it's okay to still get frustrated because you'll have flare-ups and you'll have the ups and downs, and to recognize it and to be okay with it. But I also, like, as weird as it's gonna sound, and they always have that phrase where they're like, appreciate your body for what it can do. I do appreciate my body for what it can do. Like it went through a bunch of crap, like it keeps getting hit, and like
you keep climbing up ropes and you keep doing the things that you love. That's the thing. You keep doing things you really love doing in life and enjoying in life. And yes, you might have moments where those have to take a pause, where you have to approach it a little bit differently. But
right. And I obviously have to take my self-care days too, or be like, okay. But I have to also say, like, it's okay. Like I have to tell myself, I appreciate you and I appreciate your body. And I'll be like, and I'm always in there giving myself, you lock yourself together, you got this, but like I appreciate it for all of the things that it's survived. And so that I do this with patients. Sometimes I have them do body positivity, like
amazing.
To be like, it's okay. Like still accept that part of you, even from like surgeries, like this scar, this is part of you. And it's okay because you need to love it and you need to let it know it's okay because it's not going to heal if you're so mad at it.
Yeah.
So I had to get through being mad at what happened and tell myself it's okay, and basically re-love the parts of my body that were injured so that they will work with me to do all the things I want to do.
Okay, so for someone who doesn't say they're expressing feelings very well, I think that was very eloquently said.
Well, I did pay attention in that class, even if I was mad. I did express my anger.
I was like, that was just very well said, actually.
So, yes, I mean, I did pay attention. So I was like, why are we doing this? But yeah, so anyway, so there's that. There's my lesson for, body positivity. Appreciate your body. Like it does many things, and it's going through its own shock and trauma of like what happened.
It is, and you're exactly right. It can't just be the physical. You have to, the emotional and the mental are just as intrinsically involved in it. So if you're berating it and you're angry and you're upset, like that healing process is going to slow down a little bit too.
Right. So. Which I think is a part that maybe nobody addresses. It's like, here's what's on your MRI, here's what's on your X-ray, here's what I can shoot with a needle, here's what medication goes for this. I don't think people address the mental component of what this is doing to that person through that journey. And if we never stop to pause to say, it's okay to be mad, but now you need to love yourself or you won't heal. So
just preach that message.
Okay. Yes. Perfect. So there's my advice.
I love it. I love it. I think that's great.
It came very touchy-feely. I don't know what happened. I'm
here for it. I want to light a candle.
I'm gonna need more soda right now. Way too touchy-feely. I don't know how we ended here.
So good. But that's such a perfect way to end, I think, too.
So So I guess that's where we're at, right? Welcome to the journey. And so again, like with all the things, follow the social media, follow Krista, message her, call me if you get hurt, right away, as soon as possible. And again, love yourself. Like tell your body it's okay. So thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on social media and DM if you have a question, comment, concern, or any issues you want to talk about on the podcast. So thank you again. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of the State of Healthcare podcast. We hope that we were able to gain some valuable information or at least some insight into what goes into some of these conditions from this patient's story. Please feel free to like, always share. Please follow us online at Better Fit Therapy. And again, if there's any conditions or things that we haven't addressed or that you might find interesting, you can always message us online and we'll be willing to investigate. But again, taking your own healthcare into your hands is probably the most important lesson that you can learn from this. So unfortunately, in the state of healthcare that we're in now, you do have to fight for the things that are important. We encourage you to take a more active role in your healthcare and be able to participate so that we can fix this system where we're at now. Thank you again and have a good day.